to be making, this one's a little more time consuming. I'm going to be making a alkaline cream of mushroom and wild rice soup. So being that the wild rice takes so long, what we're going to do first is we're going to soak it in spring water, of course. And I'm going to let it soak for about 5 minutes. And then I'm just going to put it in my strainer and drain it. And then we're going to be adding it to the stove because it takes so long. So that way it can be cooking while I prep everything else. Okay, so I have my wild rice. I had soaked it for a few minutes. And I'll put it in the strainer. So that's sitting in the sink now, draining. So for that 1 cup of wild rice, I'm going to take 3 cups of spring water and a half a teaspoon of sea salt. And then I'm just going to bring that to a boil. Once it comes to a boil, we're going to add the rice, let it boil for a couple minutes, and then put a top on it and let it simmer. It takes about 40 minutes for it to actually be done. Hi, so one of the ingredients in this soup is, and I hope I'm pronouncing it properly, is chayote. It is a Mexican squash and it can be very acidic. So I saw a video on YouTube that I found interesting. So you can already see the acid coming off the top of it. So trick that I saw on YouTube was you just rub in a circular motion and you start to see it fizzing at the top, and that's just the acid coming out of it. So I'd say probably do this for anywhere between 1 to 2 minutes until you stop seeing that froth surface at the top. That means that you've gotten all, if not most, of the acid out of it. So I already have a bunch prepared and they're chopped already. These are going to be going into the soup, and they give like a potato type addition. I've only tried it in soup, successfully tried it in soup. I tried to mash it because I've been really wanting mashed potatoes. So it didn't come out that great. Mashed, not the right consistency. Not what I was looking for anyway. It actually kind of just sat in my fridge until I threw it out. Okay, after I had gone at it pretty vigorously for about 2 minutes, figured you'd rather not watch that process if you didn't have to. So then all you're going to do is just peel your chayote. I'm not working as nimbly as I normally would. Cut my finger yesterday cooking and it's a little sore. But I'm only cooking for myself and one other person. Otherwise I would have gloves on if I was cooking for multiple people. So then you're going to cut it in half. And then there is a seed in the middle of it. And what you're going to do is you're just going to scoop it out. It's really easy to do. Scoop it out with a spoon. And then you're going to chop it. I'm doing, for the soup, I'm doing about 1-inch cubes. You can do them bigger if you want. You can do them smaller. I think the 1/2 inch, I think I said 1 inch, 1/2 inch cubes, I think would work best for the soup. So we have the rice going. Once that is ready to go, we're going to assemble the rest of the soup. Okay, so the wild rice has fully cooked. It has a little bit of water left in it, but I figure it's going to be in a pot with lots of other things cooking anyway. So I have the pot on a low to medium heat. And what we're going to do is we're going to put a little grapeseed oil, about a tablespoon, just to cover the bottom. So what we're adding to this, you can't see the onions because they're completely covered in mushrooms. I love mushrooms, and it is a mushroom soup, so it's only right. So I have a 16-ounce pack of mushrooms that I've cleaned and sliced, and then one large white onion that I chopped. So here we have, in the measurements, I think I had called for 2 cups, but this is the chayote, which is, like I said, a good substitute for the potatoes. And we have a 16-ounce bag of spinach. We're gonna use the whole bag because, you know, spinach is, it's kind of like a magic act. It likes to disappear. So then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna add the onions and the mushrooms, get those cooked down. We're not gonna cook this too much because they are gonna be cooking in the soup. I don't want the mushrooms to be like super soft. I want them to keep some firmness to them. I just like a little brown, and I think when you saute them first, it adds a little bit of nice flavor to it. So, uh-oh, almost knocked everything over. So I'm gonna put it up to more of a medium heat. And then we're just gonna let that cook down. Get you a little closer. Probably just gonna let this cook a little bit for, I'd say, about 5 minutes. And what I'm gonna do is, while I go get my chickpea flour, I'm going to leave you with the rest of our ingredients. We are gonna be using spring water. There's onion powder, cayenne, sea salt, basil. The grapeseed oil was just for sauteing those, and then the thyme. So I'm gonna grab my chickpea flour and some more spring water because I'm sure we're gonna need it, and I'll be right back. Okay. So yeah, as long as it's spring water, I do have a favorite, which I'm not going to reveal. I'd rather them give me some money to do that. So we're going to take a half cup, which is not here. So we're gonna do a half a cup of chickpea flour. They actually, I went to probably about 6 different stores and could not find chickpea flour. This is our garbanzo fava flour. It was for a recipe I really was looking to make that day. So I just settled for that, but it has been tried and true. Anything I've used it for that I normally would use chickpea flour for, it's worked out perfectly fine. So as I make like a little mess, but it's okay. Nothing that I'm not gonna clean up because no one else knows how to clean in this house. So I'm just gonna mix that. I'm just gonna use this bowl so I'm not dirtying a whole bunch of other things. Now you can just add the chickpea flour to the soup to thicken it up, but sometimes it can clump up because it mixes with the heat level of the water or whatever you're cooking in the soup, and it can clump up. So I like to just mix it with water. So that was a half a cup of chickpea flour, and I'm just mixing it with about the same half a cup. This doesn't have to be exact, it's just to thicken it. You're going to be adding it to a pot with water and stuff already in it. So this right here doesn't have to be exact. I just don't want it lumpy. So that has sauteed down to where I want it. Like I said, it's going to cook some more in the soup. You have that. Like I said, I will get better at this. I know I will. So we're going to add your chayote. And actually, I just realized how much is in here. I'm going to do half. So I peeled originally 6 chayote, and then I added the 7th when I showed how to take the acidity out of it. So 3 to 4 chayote you can use for this recipe. So then you're going to add spring water just until it covers everything that you have in the pot. Add a little bit more because we have some stuff hanging out at the top. So just as I saw the things at the top kind of almost start to come to a float. Sorry about the camera, guys. I'm getting used to this. Just as I saw it kind of start to want to float to the top, I knew that everything was submerged in water. Perfect amount of water that I'm looking for. Just give it a stir. And then we're going to add 2 teaspoons of sea salt. Two teaspoons of onion powder. Now these are half teaspoons, so don't just think I don't know the difference between 2 and 4, guys. Going to do a teaspoon each of, that's a heaping teaspoon, but I absolutely love everything super spicy. Or that was actually a heaping half a teaspoon. So then I'm going to put in a regular teaspoon. So like I said, that's two teaspoons of sea salt, 2 teaspoons of onion powder, and then for the rest of the seasonings, you're going to do 1 teaspoon each of thyme, basil, cayenne, and I'm just going to grab 2 bay leaves. 1, 2. Wild rice is done. So I'm just going to add that as well. And it depends on how you prefer your rice. Even if you wanted to, since it's pretty much cooked already, you could even leave the rice to the side and wait for the soup to be almost finished before adding it to it. So now we got everything mixed in here. Just gonna make sure I didn't forget anything. Got the seasonings, got the onions, the mushrooms, the chayote, and the wild rice. So I'm just gonna cover this. I'm gonna leave it on low to medium heat, almost medium, like just below medium. I'm gonna cover that, let it cook for 20 minutes, and then on to the next step. Okay, so we're back for the final step. Soup has been simmering for 20 minutes and it's perfect. I could smell it as I was coming up the steps. Smells delicious. Unless you don't like mushrooms. If you don't like mushrooms, then why would you be watching this video anyway? So, going to add the spinach, whole bag, and then, you know, after it cooks, you're gonna be like, what spinach? Because spinach is very disrespectful in that it likes to disappear on you. But that's okay. We're still gonna have the perfect amount in here. So let me get you a little closer. So the soup right now, we have not added the chickpea flour to it yet. So it doesn't have that creamy look to it, but it will. But if you could smell it right now, pretty sure you'd really appreciate it. But if you've followed me in this recipe, or if you choose to make it later, you're either smelling it now yourself, or you will be when you choose to make it. So then, I'm going to take the chickpea flour mix. It's formed a little bit at the bottom, so I'm just going to give it a quick stir, but nothing too thick. You don't want to ruin the soup, take away from all the flavors that are in it, and then have the flour kind of flour power. It'll kind of overpower the flavor of everything else that you have incorporated in the soup. So I've just added the chickpea flour. And still doesn't look very thick, but of course it needs to cook. And it'll thicken as it cooks. And then even when you turn it off and it sits for a little bit, it still continues to thicken. So, got some goodness going on there. I tasted it. Tastes great. So now pretty much the chayote is probably just a few minutes away from being the firmness that you'd like for it to be. Just didn't want to cook it too much, and then when you add the other things and cover it and let it cook down in its last stage. You don't want them to be mush. So added that. I'm going to cover it. It's going to cook the spinach down. Shrink it a little bit so that way when you scoop it up with your spoon when you're ready to eat it, it's not hanging down your face because the pieces are so big. So, covered that up. I'm going to lower it. It was at a little less than medium heat. Don't want it to burn on the bottom, especially when you add the chickpea flour. It's more likely to do that. Or stick on the bottom. Maybe not burn, but it will stick. So lowered it a little bit, not quite to low heat, a little more than low heat. And I'm going to set my timer for 15 minutes and we're going to check on it. I made this only once before and I can't remember if it was 15 or 20 or 25 minutes in this last step. So we're going to do 15 so that it doesn't overcook, and then we'll be back and it should be in 15 minutes ready to put in a bowl and absolutely love.